to the Town Hall Academy from the Remarkable Results Radio podcast. Carm Capriato here, and I'm going to have a great panel. We're going to have a great discussion today. Wow. The importance of back office operations. To me, the nerve center, the pulse of the business. And I've got these three, actually, hopefully four great women shop owners that are going to be here to talk about this. Now, speaking of support, it's Jasper Engines and Transmissions that make this academy possible. At Jasper Engines and Transmissions, quality and customer service is their number one goal. Their associates take pride in their work, and it shows in the quality drivetrain products they produce. Their quality and customer service has kept them growing for 75 years. Let me start around the table and introduce my great panel for the importance of back office operations discussion. Kim Auernheimer, AAM, is the owner and business manager of CS Automotive in Brentwood with her husband, Rob. Marianne Croce of Croce Transmissions in Norwalk, Connecticut, and also from smallbizvantage.com. Hello, Marianne.
Hi.
And, of course, we have Jackie Walter Hauer, actually, the Director of Operations and third generation at the family business, Zimmerman's Automotive in Mechanicsburg, PA. And I will introduce Amy. She's the owner of Auto Craftsman in Montpelier, Vermont. Hi, Amy. Let me undo your unmute. Say hello, Amy.
Hey there.
We have got you. Wonderful, wonderful thing. Well, look at back office operations, so critical to running a business, no matter what kind of business it is. And we've got so many great talking points, everyone, that I'm going to start at the top of my list. And if we don't get to them all, we're going to come back and do part two. If you all hopefully agree, we'll work out a time we can all get on together.
Okay.
So here's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about controls. We're going to talk about operations, human resources, accounting and finance, customer marketing, all the stuff that happens in that back nerve center. So controls. Amy, I'm going to go right out to you. Talk to me about controlling the money.
Controlling the money, I think, is one of the most important parts of being an owner. And I have to say, I know 5 different shops that have been embezzled, and from all different aspects: the service writer, the bookkeeper, a technician, and it all had to do with giving too much temptation to your staff. So one of the things that we're taught over and over again when we go to classes is that you're successful when you're working on the business and not in the business. But I do feel that the money is working on the business, and that is the one piece that you never let go of. And at one point I had a really good bookkeeper, and she had authority to sign checks, and she reconciled the checkbook, and she could do everything and I didn't have to do it. And that when I met the third person that got embezzled, I said, thank you so much, you've been awesome, but I just need an office assistant to do the data entry, and then from then on it's my responsibility to sign the checks, reconcile the checkbook. And it's a double check way for you to really keep your eye on what's going on in the business.
Can anyone else who's on here with us say that they have some experience with money problems, issues like that?
I've heard a lot of stories similar to what Amy was saying. And probably a good thing was I heard about him in the beginning. Mm-hmm. So me having a banking background, that was something that I didn't want to let go of. I've heard about it in other industries as well, many people in the trades. I think it's something not to be afraid of, but I think controlling it and having those checks and balances in place are crucial, because then it does give you that power to make really informed decisions, as well as knowing those numbers.
Okay, so let's dig down just a little deeper, and let me throw this out to the panel, because we're talking about money, we're talking about controls, bank reconciliations, who signs the check, who opens the mail. I mean, all of those, if you will, are really smart areas of discipline. Kim, can you share any special disciplines or controls you have in those areas?
Yeah, that is one thing that we have so many transactions happening each day just in order to function. So we've got, we've got POs going out, we've got, parts coming in. And I think the biggest thing is to have systems and processes set in place so that you can go back and check at any particular point. I do happen to do reconciliation, and for the ease of the amount of transactions we have going on a daily basis, I actually do it daily. I'll post it. I look at the bank account every day so that if there's a question or a charge, even if it's hey Rob, what'd you buy at Costco? He can hand me that receipt right there. So I'm doing it on a daily basis if possible. I'm the only one that has access to the, and of course Rob, to our bank account information. None of the mail gets opened. Except for myself or Rob. Part of it is because there's, it's our business, and it's if it even comes addressed to somebody at the front desk, such as our service writer or something, there's always, it still comes through me first, and it's just by systems.
I appreciate that. Jackie, big business, big family business. You must have all kinds of controls.
We do. One of the things we have is we have for our Quick Lube is we have a separate system. It's a separate POS system that has everything calculated down to the penny as to what's coming in and what is going out as far as change and whatnot. And we don't have that for our service department, but I've put something in place that allows us to make sure we're seeing what is flowing in and coming out as far as change and whatnot, just to make sure, because money has disappeared, but it has come up after a little bit of research, but it has never been stolen at this point. We've had a problem at our car wash with that, but not actually here in our service department.
Here, I have a thought for you. A lot of the dealers, if you just order a couple things from them and you're not ordering them on a regular basis, they won't give you a charge account. Mm-hmm. And they're, and so they get grumpy about cash on delivery because other places may pick up the parts. So what I did for my service advisor is he has a credit card, but he has a limit, it's $1,000 limit on it. And so that way, and anytime he charges anything, I get a text message or an email, so I know what he's doing. And if he's got to go over $1,000, then he contacts me and I take it from there. But you got to have systems so that your staff can function, but that they're functioning with some control.
We have this incredible industry, the beloved aftermarket of service professionals who were the greatest technicians in the entire world, and they said, I can run a business. And we know this for a fact. We talk about it all the time, and we realize what our strengths and weaknesses are because of that. And when you are good at talking to cars and you need to go and work on the service counter or work in the dreaded back office, you sometimes delegate things like writing checks and opening the mail and payables. And I guess our warning here is, and I think it was you, Amy, that said it, never delegate this piece of working on your business.
Yes. Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah,
totally agree. I mean, I know horror stories. The best was the best friend who was the bookkeeper, and they would do, fun things, the families, the kids, they hung out all the time. And unbeknownst, the best friend was embezzling them big time, and she actually, the shop bought them a boat, and they would take the owners on their boat, with them. And it was just like, wow, people, and sometimes it's a sickness. I mean, that's what they found out. This woman just had this thing where she had been, every place she'd ever been, she had been stealing money.
I think it's also really important, though, not that we have to, we have to be able to give our employees the freedom to do their job. So if there's always Big Brother watching over, I don't think that that's very conducive to a good culture. However, having the systems and the processes and the checks and balances in place if there is an issue, it's caught early. I still have people within the there's several of us that do have access to sign checks, but because I'm looking at them on a daily basis, I can nip it in the butt right away.
So what you're really saying, Kim, is you've got to give trust and freedom, but you need to verify all the time that trust and that freedom is working. It continues to be honest, and you have to question, even if there doesn't look like anything out of place. As an owner, you need to go out and say, Bobby, what was that check for? Even though you may know that, a lot of CEOs ask questions they know the answers to.
Hey, I need to post it for accounting purposes. What was it written for? And by the way, I didn't get the receipt. So that's, I think to come down and really just overshadow and look over the shoulder all the time. It's one of the first things when we're doing reviews of other shops and their employees is, do you feel empowered? And I think if somebody is always being, or not able to do their job, then they're not empowered, and then you have culture issues. So I think it is about having systems and balances and checks and balances in place.
Yeah.
Trust and verify. Trust and verify. Great. We can go on and on for controls, but thank you very much. It was great. It was enlightening, and hopefully we've shaken the tree a little bit. Let's go into operations. Really big piece of what goes on inside the back office, from systems, policies, and procedures. Kim, you're a big policy and procedures person.
Absolutely.
Wow. I mean, just start us off.
Well, I just did a class recently on the 3 Ps of a great system, and that's policies, procedures, and I think it's very, very important and I just mentioned it, to empower your employees, to give them the freedom, but also the direction. I think one of the most important things to do is number one, to have a handbook, to know what's expected of our employees and what they should expect of us. That is key. If an employee, if it's in the handbook and they've received it and signed off in it, they know what their attendance is. They know what's expected from them. They know the hours of operation, all the way to the dress code, to how you should and should not talk to a coworker, et cetera, et cetera. So I think by having policies and procedures in place, it's really, really important in that it keeps chaos from happening, number one. And there's always that, the accountability, also, being held accountable at the same time allows for the freedom. So I think handbooks or the first thing, if you don't have anything in place, get a handbook in place. That is the first thing you have to do, in my opinion. And then just having, systems. If somebody is out of the shop for the day and something has to be done, there's something written. So I'm a very firm believer in having things written and the directions available.
You mentioned handbook. I know handbook. I think you're talking about the human resource handbook, right?
Absolutely.
Right, we're going to cover that in the HR topic. Marianne, processes, operations, procedures.
It's to tag on to what Kim was saying. It's so important, and it sounds complicated, I know, to a lot of shop owners, because a lot of technicians become shop owners. So their comfort level is, the production of their shop. And this part of what we're talking about here can seem so much. There's so much meat to it. But I think depending on what stage of business you're in, the idea here is you actually want to make things simpler for yourself. So the effort or work that you're putting in the beginning, it pays off big time. If you're brand new in business, you're the person who's really bootstrapping. You're doing everything. You're wearing all the hats. And this can seem very overwhelming. When we look at this group, this four of us here now, I know all of these women, and we're doing things that we're working. Yes, we're working inside of our business, but we're able to work on our business and get involved with other things, associations, get out and do things for the industry. And that's the goal. I think as a shop owner, is to get to that point where you can empower your team. Once you start growing, in your business and you're not doing so much, then the part of it is, like Kim said, now you have to get everything. I mean, I want to correct myself. You are growing. You're growing a lot, and now you have team members. You're not doing it all yourself. Then you really need those systems and processes in place to allow your team to grow, to allow your team to function, and give them opportunity as well, because everyone wants to contribute. People don't want to feel micromanaged. So I think that's a great way to do it. And then, lastly, when you're at that point in your business where you have these systems and processes working, a lot of times we think about, scaling our business in the sense where now we're looking for those people that can come in and be leaders, in the business and really run it. So I think for people that may watch the replay, it could seem overwhelming, or depending on what stage of business they're in.
Yeah.
But it's really a journey. It's a process. And I'm sure, I don't want to speak for everyone else, but there were a lot of things that I had to learn, a lot of skills that I had to build. And I think it's just a normal part of the process.
I think understanding what policies, processes, and procedures do individually and how they collectively as a system keep things functioning, I think that's one of the hardest things for a business owner, because as Marianne said, generally they're technician turned business owner. I know I come from a background of corporate America, property management, commercial real estate. I think that's part of it, is having somebody come in and having that experience prior coming in. If you can't do it, you got to get somebody in there, because to set up to help. I think that's the most daunting thing for a technician, especially technician turned business owner, but just a shop owner in general. The most daunting thing is sitting down and figuring out, how are we going to do this and why are we doing this? And then getting everybody on board, and so that there is a system.
But there is light at the end of the tunnel when you start this whole process. And Marianne, I want to give you a high five for that. The stages of business, bootstrapping, growth, and scale. I loved how you pieced that together. You're not going to all of a sudden wake up tomorrow and have the best operational procedures ever. I know there's a lot of people willing to share their ideas, but you cannot ever take someone's ideas and make it wholly your own. You have to modify it and make it yours. Jackie?
I say that they're organic. There are systems and processes that are organic.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, Jackie?
Can I chime in here for a sec?
Oh, God, yes, please, Amy.
Okay, so I feel like this is one of the most important things that even if you're a one-man shop, you've got to have this, because what it does is it gives you consistency within how you are running your business, and it gets rid of all the problems of communication, because everything has to be done in a way that the ball doesn't get dropped. And it's all about communication. And that's the biggest problem in the business. And I feel like that's where we get our bad reputation, is when we have miscommunication, which happens all the time. And that's what the systems and procedures are in place to help you not have that miscommunication. And the bigger you get, the more important the systems are, because then you have various people talking to each other, but maybe they're not actually talking because the job ticket is talking to itself. So you need a system for whoever's talking to the customer to get all the information they need. And then it's got to be written down the same way correctly on the job ticket, because then it goes out to the technician. And then you need that system for the inspection. You've got to have a very bulletproof, done by every single technician the same way every single time, so things don't get missed. And then it's got to be written on the ticket. And what I tell my staff is this is their way of being accountable, so that if the service advisor does not explain something to the customer, and then the customer says, well, nobody told me that, if you wrote it on your job ticket, then you're fine. You did your job. But if it's not written down, so then obviously maybe you verbally told it to the technician, he said, she said thing. If you wrote it down, you've covered your butt. So everybody understands that they have to be accountable, and all that accountability is to be able to communicate to each other so that by the time everything gets done and the customer is picking up the job at the end of the day, they know exactly what happened, why it happened. They already know the number, so you don't have the deer in the headlights that, people should never pick up a car if it's going to be $500 and they thought it was going to be, $125. Not okay. So the system and procedure is the check and balances, keeps everybody accountable, and prevents miscommunication.
Thank you, Amy. Jackie?
Along with Amy, so there's nothing more frustrating than when a customer is here to pick up their vehicle, and they have a question and you just don't know how to answer it because it's not written down. And then you have to chase down either the tech or the service advisor that helped work on that vehicle. And it's if everything's written down, it's right there, ready to go.
So you're really not saying, hey team, we have to be better communicators. You're really saying it's got to be a process. It's got to be in the system.
Absolutely.
It's Bible-ish.
Yep.
It is Bible-ish, and it's the way I've gotten my staff to really buy into this is because things happen. I mean, we all know that. Things happen, cars come back, and so every single paper that anybody has written on is stapled to my copy of the invoice. So it has the flow sheet, it's got the invoice, it's got the job ticket, it's got the estimate, it's got everything. My copy has everything anybody has written on. So then down the line, if there's a problem, and I keep those for a year, because, if something's not going to come back in a year, you're probably not going to see it again. But then I dig it out and we say, okay, well, let's see if you did your job, or let's see what happened. And I can follow every step of the job. And so that way, when something goes wrong, they all want to see that ticket too, because it's just a way for them to, again, be accountable for their own actions. And if everybody's being accountable for what they have to do, then they're taking the time and the energy to make sure it's done right.
I think it's also important. Just last night this happened where we had a customer that was picking up and we had to go back 2 tickets back. And if the systems and processes and everything are being followed as they should, we can go back and review and assume that this is what happened back then because it's done the same way every time. So, we went back 2 visits and clarified a question because the systems and processes are fluid. They happen. And I think that's really important.
And I know for us with our state inspection, I don't know what your states are like. With our state inspection, as strict as it is, if it's not written down, it wasn't done.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's written down and something comes back and we have to look back at it and it's there, it saves our butt.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I have a great follow-up question for you all here in a minute, but I want to give Jasper another recognition. In addition to the strict quality remanufacturing steps they take at Jasper, they can actually improve a drivetrain's components' original design so that it runs longer and better than when it was new. Check out their featured engine and transmission pages at jasperengines.com. Now, I love where we've been.
I'm going to pull a little Jeremy. I have a Jasper engine right now sitting in a bay.
Jeremy, I love it. Yeah, that is so funny. All of a sudden, he just seems to pop this stuff. Yeah, you're right. Thank you. So question. You mentioned fluidity. I love that word when it just talks about great movement. And so there's a shop owner that says, we've got some policies and procedures. They're really not where they should be. We have some, I can't imagine us continuing to work so hard to make these things as fluid and as strong and as powerful. Your experiences of getting up to the level that you had, let's give some advice to the shop owner who's on that bell curve, but he's nowhere near the high point of having the right stuff in place. What's it take? How long does it take? What's the struggle?
I don't think it has to take a long time. And the big thing to get the techs to buy in is it's a win-win. Because if the shop owner could make, I mean, really it's just being more organized. And the more organized you can be, the better production for the staff. And so then you just need to make it so that your staff wants to produce better. And so you either pay by production or you pay hourly with bonuses. And again, you make it a win-win for everybody. And that way they all want to buy into it.
One of the things that we started when it came time, it's like, we just need to do this, we need to get these done, is I actually, because we do have meetings, we have very regular meetings, we have management meetings on Mondays and staff on Wednesdays, and with very few exceptions, I think Thanksgiving week is the one week we didn't do it, but those policies and procedures are basically written up as a team in many cases, or whoever's doing that job. List how you do it, why you do it, where you do it, and how. And then you start just kind of organically, organically, because they're going to change.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to change. And so I think you just have to, take one step at a time, 1 foot forward at a time. And if it's not your gift, if you don't have the personnel, if you don't have, for whatever reason, get somebody into your shop to help you. I think we spend a lot of time at trainings, being in different classes, being told, that we need to do this, but with very few exceptions that I've experienced, the tools aren't out there. And I have happened to, work with a great mentor that gave us the tools, but we had to still take them and make them our own and tweak them and make it happen. So one step at a time, though.
Carm, this brings a level of professionalism to the shop. That's what it does, with that consistency that Amy was talking about and what Kim was saying about your team, the buy-in. So everyone from your service writer, customer service technicians, when they see this, it brings a level of professional. They're being seen as the professionals that they are. And once it's put across, that way, and they see the benefit of it, it makes them, better able to do their job. It's a resource for them.
Love that.
And some of the processes and systems to even get started, I have a customer service rep. The first time I hired a customer service rep was because I was in overwhelm. I was doing a customer service, I was doing the bookkeeping, I was doing the marketing. So I was in overwhelm, and I had someone come in part-time and told her what I wanted, got everything that was in my head the way that I was doing it out. But then I actually had her create all of the things that she was doing. I had her document it because I was adding things. So when I realized after this part-time person moved on, finished school and moved on, now I realized I had a full-time position and I had all the documentation there. So you can even get your team to help you.
Mm-hmm. And having the meetings, like Kim said, and I'm sure Marianne and Jackie do also, is it's important to have regular meetings with your team. And say you don't have that inspection checklist, have your team make it. Because I just came up with one. Someone gave me one. I gave it to the team, and then they rearranged it. They were like, "It's not efficient. If we did this, if you move this here, and if you move this here, and you should word this different." And so having it on our computer, it's a work in motion. It never stops changing. So your team will buy in and help you do it once you get everybody on board.
I love it, ladies. I love it. By the way, I do want to say that all of my guests today are members of the Auto Care Woman in Auto Care, WIAC, and it's one of my most favoritist groups in the entire world. Love Women in Auto Care. And in fact, there's going to be a podcast coming out soon with the winners of this year's awards. So can't
and
wait
can I put a plug in for our winter meeting? We're having our winter leadership conference out in Scottsdale, Arizona, February. You guys help me out here.
Second? No, I'm sorry, January 30th and 31st.
Yes. January 31st, February 1st.
Yeah, there you go.
And so anybody's interested, womeninautocare.com.
That will be very good, womeninautocare.com. That would be a nice weather down in Scottsdale, right?
I know. I'm so looking forward to going and being warm.
There's I see a couple of Women in Auto Care members that are on the Facebook Live too. There, and it's an amazing group of people.
Yeah, I know. And who was it that said, Carm, why you have all women on? Why'd you have all women on this show? Oh, it was Amy. It was Amy.
Yeah, I said, notice that you got the women talking about being organized. And
this was by design. I love hanging out. I love being the only guy in the room.
And if there's anybody who any of the guys who want to come, we don't exclude guys from our conferences.
That's right. I've been to one.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. Another. It was a great time. Okay, so I really do believe we need to break this up into two parts. What we're going to do is we're going to save human resources and customer for the next time we get together, and hopefully it won't be too far out. Maybe within a month we'll get this panel together again. But I want to jump into accounting and finance, and I just think that this is I've been to a lot of seminars, seen the business coaches in front of them and say, okay, did you bring your P&Ls?
What's that?
Yeah, I know. So
that's our steering wheel. It's the steering wheel of your business is your finances.
It's your snapshot.
Yes. How do you know where to drive if you can't see the road?
And there's a lot of guys, and in the old days, says, listen, if there's money in the checkbook, I'm doing fine. And and you're literally bleeding to death on a daily basis, and the money in the checkbook goes from having $1,000 to $500, but yet there's still money in the checkbook that must mean I'm doing okay, but there really should be $20,000 in the checkbook, not $500. So it is a snapshot, and finance and accounting is so important. P&L, payables, accounts receivable, and we got a question that came up on the Zoom webinar platform about QuickBooks. So, ladies. I would like to open up and let's start our dialogue on accounting and finance.
I'm going to jump right in on this one. I do come from I'm not an accountant, but an accounting background with full charge bookkeeping and managing multi-million-dollar commercial portfoliows for different investors and such. One of the biggest things you got to do is stay organized up front. QuickBooks, one of the little things that most people don't even know is QuickBooks has this little tiny button. It's called a paperclip, or it's a picture of a paperclip. My husband and I were very, very privileged and honored to be called upon the IRS for it to be audited.
Oh,
how lucky!
And it was the scariest thing I've ever experienced in my life. However, but because everything was organized and clean, I mean, you got to keep good, clean books. I'm never going to tell you anything different. But because every receipt going back, remember the checks and balances. I need that receipt. Is the checks and balances that the money is not being spent that shouldn't be spent at the very beginning of the conversation. But I had every receipt accounted for. So when the auditor came in, he said he'd be here for 3 to 4 days in my business. So this was not an outside audit. He was living with us, basically. He planned on being here 3 to 4 days. And because I was able to basically give him everything in binder platform clean, and he was here for about 3.5 hours, and my audit came back clear. He dismissed the second. I had 2 years that I was flagged for. One was because we sold investment properties. The next year we made too much money for an automotive business. Thank you to the Smart Group and Cecil Bullard for that. So, but when we're making too much money, they looked at you funny too. So I had to really go, and we also purchased a building that same year. So that being said, is accounting has to be clean and has to be organized from the get-go. And if you don't think you're ever going to be audited, I never thought I would be either.
Wait a minute, you can't go to an IRS audit with a box of receipts and say, look through it?
You can, absolutely, and that's what he fully expected. But when I handed binders over of all these, I was basically, what do our customers want from us? They want transparency. I was transparent. And by being as organized as I was, thank goodness, then it didn't look like, he did say there's many shops that he's gone into, and there are literally boxes of receipts. And it's his responsibility. I think what it was is he has to, we have the duty of proving our expenses, and he has a duty of proving our income. And so, but when you hand, nothing's going to tick an auditor off more if you just hand over a box, and then he's going to start being, a little different.
Besides worrying about an IRS audit, you still need to have that roadmap, and boxes of receipts, it doesn't do it if you're going to run a successful business today.
And part of if you run your business like you're being audited, then it's easy to pull numbers to know the roadmap, to know which direction you're driving. So that's going to be something I stand behind.
Does everybody use QuickBooks? I use QuickBooks.
Yep.
Yep.
There's the answer for our Q&A from today. So yes, you use, and is it easy to integrate? It must be into an automotive shop.
Mm-hmm.
My point of sale system basically exports too. So I don't know about everybody else's, but it exports information over to QuickBooks.
Mine does as well.
Is QuickBooks printing your P&L? And if it does, are you going to an accountant or a bookkeeper external to have any kind of verify an audit?
Yeah, we use an outside accountant's office to help us with our taxes. It's just this company has grown a little too big for us to be able to handle it in-house. So we have an outside accountant that helps us out with that.
Yeah, we do as well. We have an outside accountant that we use for tax purposes. I think, though, something to bring up with accounting is it's really important, as Kim said, to keep your books clean. Don't mix personal and business. Keep everything separate. And as Kim said, we had a similar situation where when we purchased our building, we keep those set up as different accounts, separate accounts. The business is one account and the building is a separate business altogether. So it's so much easier. And then if there are areas in your business where you are catching something, it's much harder when you have all those funds mixed together to see. If one area is doing well and another area isn't, you may be looking at the checkbook and say, oh, there's money there, but you may not be seeing that hole or where you're losing money. So it's much better to keep, and I would advise you right from the start, to keep everything nice and clean and separate.
Yeah, and if you own the building and you keep it separate, then one day you may sell the business and then become a landlord and collect rent. And so then it's very clean and easy to do. Plus, then you can show the service side of the business made this much money and you don't have the building tucked in there at all.
That's what happened to us, because the building that we're in, we're not the only business in the building. So we became landlords as well at the same time.
Oh, that's a beautiful thing.
Oh, to your point, Amy, that's true. That's exactly what happens.
I think it's very important to, we had an absolute godsend of an accountant sent to us. He actually had experience or has experience in automotive, and he's just around the corner from us. And I know there's a couple of other shops around the country that are actually using him now because he's good. But we also meet with him. I talk with him, if not every month, at least every quarter, to kind of go over and see how are things looking, how are your projections coming, your estimated tax payments, et cetera, et cetera. So I think having a good accountant is key. We didn't have a good accountant the first 10 years of our business, and it was painful. But in addition to that, I think if you can, or if you don't work with a mentor or a coach, then I think it's smart to get with one because they're going to help you learn how to look at your finances all the way down to parts to labor ratio. Why would you think that's important? You're making money, there's money in the bank, I'm good. But knowing how your parts to labor ratio match up, what are your margins? Margins, and something I learned coming into automotive and never being in retail was margins and markups are not the same thing. I was like blown away. I doubled it, I got 50% margin, right? No. So getting with somebody that that understands the numbers to help you, and I love what Amy said, steering wheel, know where you're driving your business to.
Mm-hmm. And that's a good point about estimated taxes. That was a rude awakening when when I bought the business, I then got to put in all the systems and procedures that my business partner never wanted to do. And literally the business like doubled in sales in 1 year. And all of a sudden there was like all this money coming in, and I didn't know anything about estimated taxes. And so then, because I was getting a paycheck out of the business, and so I was, having a W-2 like everybody else. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh man, I got to pay taxes because I didn't know about estimated taxes. So having an accountant who can kind of keep, on a quarterly basis is not a bad thing, is to have someone to kind of hand over. And that way it's not the end of the year and it's like, you made too much money. And so then your choices are, you either, give the government the money, or you go buy some tool and equipment you don't really need, because you can't put the money in your pocket because you didn't have a strategy. And there are strategies, which I've learned over the years, of how you can kind of tuck money away and not have to give it to the government.
And I think it's important too, working with an accountant, because some people just think the profit and loss statements, that's what's driving the success of their business. But there's a balance sheet there too they have different expenses. And so really the profit and loss statement's not really your gauge on success. It's the health of the business as a whole, and that includes other parts of the whole accounting equation.
Great point, and I want to go a little further into accounting and finance, but please, thanks Jasper for their support again. The new vehicle may look and smell nice, don't they? Oh God, but they come with seemingly endless monthly payments. Wow, higher lease fees, license fees, higher insurance premiums. The better solution, like Kim is working with a customer, is get a remanufactured component from Jasper, and so you can give your customers, good old trusted friend, a new lease on their life. Thank you again, Jasper. Now, a bunch of things came to my mind, everyone, as we're talking about accounting and finance, budgeting, blind spots, know your numbers, margins. Kim, you brought up margins. It was a great thing. People have to understand that you pay bills with margin dollars, not with margin percent. And, you may not, as well as you sell an engine for X amount of money. There's no way it is the typical parts margin that you would make, but there's an awful lot of margin dollars in an engine sale, along with the labor. But has anyone ever done any budgeting in their company?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have to budget big time because I live in Vermont, and we have, it's like a roller coaster. So I call it tire season. So like right now it's tire season and we're really busy, and then we're going to go into January and February where it's going to be deader than a doornail because it's cold, nobody wants to come out, and nobody wants to deal with their car. And then May comes and it's like really busy again because we have to, put on their summer tires and put the cars back together. So I have to budget. So because we all know there's a technician shortage, and I have fabulous ASE certified master technicians who I never, ever want to leave me. So I have to be able to budget my money to take care of them. So if it's in the middle of February, it's 20 below zero, and we have 2 customers coming in the door, we've got projects to do, and I have the money to pay them.
So what you're saying, Amy, you're saying is, oh my God, look at that. It's the heightened part of the season. Ooh, we're making some money. That means I could go spend it.
And right. Tuck it away. But you got to know your cycles, and you got
yes, because your cycles as you start coming into your downtime, and you may have a very lean, profitable month. How that cash flow works is you've got to have a stable base from the good months, and you need to sit on it and hold it. So by building a budget gives you that 12-month look
Exactly.
and makes you a better disciplined person who will say, oh yeah, we need that new tool. And you go out and you pop $3,000 or $4,000 down, and you didn't have an equipment spend budget for the year. And now you've hurt yourself, and you may struggle getting bills paid or paying that estimated tax in the lean months, right?
And it makes you a better employer, because when your staff, I mean, my staff knows that I'm tucking money away, and and I'll tell them, they'll be like, we know there's money because we know how busy we are. We really want this tool. And and so I'm very transparent with my staff. And I said, well, that's great, honey, but January, February, you all want to get paid, right? And they're like, yeah. I said, well, we need this much money in the saving to cover us. So if there's nothing happen in January and February, everybody's bills are getting paid. So once we hit that number, I'm good with buying you this tool that we don't really need, but you want because, it's a new tool and you want this, the company to buy it versus you buying it. So there's that whole thing of how do you make, and that's a whole nother thing to talk about, but that's part of the puzzle of how to make your shop a wonderful place that people want to work. And having good cash flow is really key, because technicians all have stories of places where they worked where there wasn't enough money for them to get their paycheck. And unfortunately, most of them live paycheck to paycheck.
I think it's also important to, one of the things that we do for our management meetings every Monday is talk about the week before, and I have numbers on a weekly basis. So as far as budgeting, it's also important to know what your cycles are, and we even go as far as looking at cycles on a weekly basis. We started noticing a pattern this last year and this year, the week after getting back from Apex. Last year my husband's called me, we are so dead. And I thought it was because election, first week of November. And because we actually look at our numbers on a weekly basis, I've been able to go back through the last first 2 weeks of November and know, and basically it was announced, if anybody wants to take vacation the first 2 weeks of November, that's when you do it. So that's part of budgeting too, is knowing what your cycles are so that you can staff properly, so you can make your, like Amy said, pay the employees when you don't know how you're going to be able to do it. But budgeting is key, but knowing those numbers are just as important.
And then knowing those 2 weeks, you can have a very special marketing ready to go out the door. I mean, January and February, if anybody needs work, I don't say that out loud to everyone, but that's time to come into the shop, because we're going to have all kinds of specials to kind of bribe people to come in on the timeline we want them to come in. But you got to know about it so that you can be prepared, and you don't wait until, oh, good Lord, the phone's not ringing, we got nothing on the schedule, and then come up with the marketing piece, because the train has stopped. You need to know that the train's going to slow down before it slows down, and get that marketing out there while it's still busy, so that hopefully the train won't stop.
Hey, look at. I want to. We talked to cash flow just a moment ago. I am planning on doing an academy on cash flow, and I think that's going to be a really great episode to get into the details of why cash is king in a business and how you make it work. I want to ask a question to everyone. We're getting near the end. The hour's coming up, and so kind of let's wind it down in this. This whole operational. Back office piece. We talked controls, we talked operations, and now we're talking accounting and finance. We're going to come back and do HR, customer marketing piece. But blind spots, and it was something I can't remember who wrote it down. Kim, it may have been you. And I love the word blind spots when it comes to accounting and finance. So let's go around the room and let me ask every one of you, give me one of your biggest takeaways. It was a blind spot for you, something you learned that was so important when it came to accounting and finance. Who wants to go first?
I'll start. Basically, I kind of alluded to it, is it's interesting at the end of the year when you do your taxes, and according to this stupid 1040 form, it says you made money, is really knowing what I had to really kind of hone into is there are other expenses that are not on that P&L. Capital improvements, equipment replacement, stuff that gets depreciated that doesn't show up on that P&L. So you've got to, when you do budget, you've got to plan on capital expenditures. We are blessed enough that we own our building, so we get to fix everything. And we just had our heater at home go out. Well, because I'm not doing my budget at home like shame on me. We didn't plan for that. So we're having to figure out that one. But it is knowing and planning ahead and knowing what your not just what your day-to-day costs are, but what your capital expenditures are going to be over the long term.
Who's next? Marianne?
Yeah, I think that, having that information is so powerful because the eye-opener is projecting your goals, what you want to do with your business, where you want to go. Do you want to bring another team member on? Without having all of that information, you really don't know, where you're going. So knowing the facts, and it's scary for a lot of people because sometimes there's fear in knowing your numbers. You have a gut feeling or you're not 100% sure and you don't want to face it. But it's really a powerful tool when you know those numbers and what you can do with them, how you can go in and you can plan for the future. And now you can actually take action on, is there a service? Is there something that you're doing that is more profitable than something else? All those types of things, planning for your marketing. It's so powerful that I think if we get over that fear of the numbers, you'll find that they're kind of exciting.
You are so right about that. I mean, that is such a great point. Learn to embrace. Funny story, when I was a young man, just got out of college, Dad sat me down in the office and he said, "Hey, our accountant." And he gave me the P&L, the balance sheet and the P&L for the month. And he says, "Look it over." And I did. And he says, "Any questions?" I said, "No." I left the room. Years later, I realized that they were rolling on the floor, laughing so hard. And the accountant saying to my dad, "We got a lot of work with this kid. he doesn't have a clue. He just came back from accounting college." And so when I finally, embraced it and had it, and then later on, of course, in my life, as I'm working with 135 P&Ls from all these companies that I was working with, it was so easy to quickly take a P&L and a cash flow statement and find issues and problems, weaknesses and strengths. I had to tell that story. Jackie, any blind spots, the accounting side?
I'm not sure about a blind spot, but something that's exciting is when you make a simple change on the procedure that you're doing, and then you can watch your P&L increase as far as revenue and whatnot. That's exciting to see that to me, and saying, okay, a simple change that I made here, okay, that increased here. Let's see if we can keep this going. That's to me exciting.
Great point. How to see all your efforts show up in a number.
Yep.
Love it. Good for you. Amy, last word.
I think that everybody hit most of them, so I'll just kind of add on to Jackie's. And a blind spot, I think, for a lot of shop owners is they don't charge shop supplies. Another thing you should be charging is technical fees. How many people use All Data or Mitchell or Identifix? All of those cost money. We started adding a $4 technical fee to every single job ticket so that all of that just gets paid for. It's a wash. And that, so that way it's not coming out of your profit. Shipping, make sure you're charging for shipping and maybe even a couple bucks more just in case there's any kind of outside thing. And then Kim alluded to this, and this would be something that would be a great, do a whole town hall meeting on this, is really how to look at the numbers of various things that you do so that what is your most profitable service or repair, And then whatever that is, you become the expert. Like for us, it's brakes. We make so much money doing brakes, and my guys are also talented. They can do it in their sleeps, and they're fast. And so on all of our marketing, we are brake experts. So anybody Googles brakes, we come right up front. So what is it that you do where you make the most money, and what is it that you do that you make no money? Then maybe you shouldn't even do that. Because if you're doing something where you're not making any money, you're taking that space and that time up where you could just kind of push that and say, we don't do that here. Or have another shop that you could bring it over to that you're going to make a little money on it. But again, all those numbers give you the direction of where to make your decisions so that you're more profitable.
Well, thank you, ladies, so much. Wow, what a great lunchtime here in the East Coast on the Town Hall Academy. Thank you to Jackie Hauer, Amy Matnat, Marianne Croce, and Kim Auenheimer.